Hello and welcome to another episode. Today is a very special episode. We have the usual gang with us. Anshuman is here, Gaurang is here, and we have a very special guest, Mr. Ankur. After 1 year, welcome back to the channel. How are you doing, Ankur?
Very well, guys. Good to see you haven't aged and I have.
No, you haven't aged, Ankur.
Yeah, this is just for camera work.
Ankur's skincare routine is 3 videos a week. That's his skincare routine.
that is my skincare routine.
Anyway, for the confused gang, 18 to 24-year-olds, Ankur, we are doing what we did last time. People really enjoyed the episode. We're going to be decoding some of Naval Ravikant's tweets. And of course, there's a very special surprise at the end. We will go through it. So let's just get on with it. All right. Decoding Naval. What's the first slide? If you want to be wealthy, spend your time relaxing or earning. Outsource or ignore everything else. What does he mean by this?
I love we are back in 2019 when the world was very different. I think we should ask Naval. Do you still stand by this?
Why? You think a lot has changed, Ankur?
It's just fun to know how things would have changed. I think a bit would have. But I think what he wanted to say back then was that if you continue spending your time in earning money, then you'll never get wealthy. You'll just have money, which is just rich. And there's a big distinction in Naval's world of being rich and being wealthy. So he's saying, ya to tum chill karo, because that's when you know that you have assets that are earning money for you, or you continue earning through those assets, but just outsource every administrative task, like literally every, and ignore, just as some wise people at the age of 19 do, ignore everything else.
I think Naval has another tweet, which is work like a lion. When you're hunting, you're giving it all, but then after you're done hunting, you're relaxing. So life is a marathon of shorter sprints than actually being a long marathon. I think that's what he means, which is when you're focusing on earning, you're completely in it. But when you're not doing it, there's no point stressing. You just want to take your time.
No, what is interesting is he says time relaxing first before earning. Way we have always been taught is that pehle kamao, relax to zindagi mein baad mein kar sakte ho, retirement ke baad. That's the at least the upbringing, right? And just I was thinking about it, that if you're not able to know how to relax, and everybody has their own version, you will never know how to be the most successful at earning something. Because only when you're most calm, balanced, is when you know how to organize yourself, right?
It's interesting that you said that, Gaurang, because what I've found is that you're at your creative best when you're procrastinating. Okay, at least for me personally, which is that if I have a week to just do nothing, I'm most likely to get out of that week with 10 new ideas. A micro version of this is every day now I've started to go for a walk in the evening for an hour without my phone. I got an iPod Shuffle, and inevitably, every 3-4 days, I come out thinking, okay, I got to change some stuff, how I'm operating. I come out with ideas. I come out with, videos that I got to do. Making money through an early lucky trade is the worst way to win. The bad habits that it reinforces will lead to a lifetime of losses. This is
Hashtag crypto. Boss, an entire generation, it is not funny, man. An entire generation is being raised believing that money is FOMO and satta. You make the right bets and you'll get money fast.
Yeah. Especially folks who started investing from, March 2020.
Correct.
You are not going to see these kind of returns always, right? Like life isn't a 60% return every year. That's not how it works.
I also feel that in the beginning of your investment journey, everyone judges their competence with just the results. So which means that if you started in March 2020, tab se the market sirf upar gaya hai. So every trade of yours, every investment of yours, according to you, has been a good bet. And that will bite you later, because even if your action is sometimes right, you might not get the desired results.
Do you guys think the power law applies to stocks and general investments as well?
Totally. Like there's an index return and then there is multi-bagger return which come through. And the beauty, or at least the reality, is that you can't circumvent time when it comes to compounding. Like as Warren Buffett famously said that you can't have a kid in a month by impregnating 9 women. So the truth is जितना वक्त लगेगा उतना लगेगा.
Yeah.
Like the whatever is a kagger will have to have time added to it. So if you haven't had that run, which is not a fault of yours because you're still young, and you've had, as Anshuman said, कि अरे एक ही साल में 40%, एक ही साल में 50%, 100 गुना, 300 गुना, whatever, then you will be tricked into believing कि जिंदगी ऐसी चलती है. I actually know of so many people who have no understanding of what is a reasonable long-term expectation of return. For them, it's pegged to 30-40% upwards. Like उनके लिए 10-12%, 15% का annual return is like ये तो losers हैं. मतलब ये तो हमारे stock वाले अंकल ले लेंगे, हम थोड़ी लेंगे, हम तो cool हैं.
Aspire to move past roommates, commutes, alarm clocks, and calendars. Ankur has a wide smile. I'll let you go first, Ankur.
No, the reason I smile is because I agree with Naval on most things except his anti-trust with calendars, because I'm a sucker for calendars. So it's just like मेरी दुनिया में अगर calendar नहीं होगा तो मेरी दुनिया नहीं होगी. And I so want to have this conversation with him where I want to convince him it works for me, but I know in my heart that he's saying the truth. But I think what he means is aspire to move past relationships that you had in your past and you're just stuck with them. Like so many of us are like, यार, I can't relate to my school friends anymore or my college friends anymore, लेकिन वो तो दोस्त हैं, like वो जिंदगी के पहले दोस्त थे, so you have to continue doing that, and that is almost always the wrong decision. Commutes, Naval often says, where you stay is such a strong determinant of the quality of your life and how your life will eventually unfold. Alarm clock, which basically means that you haven't set a habit and someone has to put a trigger in you to get this done, whether it is waking up, whether it is working out, whether it is eating right. Someone externally will have to have that stimuli inserted, otherwise you wouldn't do it internally. And calendars is going back to the first tweet itself, that if you live a regimented life, then you'll never know what boredom is and relaxing is.
Structure is also your biggest enemy while it helps you do your daily task, right? So if you're becoming too structured and rigid, you don't allow serendipity to happen. And serendipity happens when you are free, trustworthy. Actually, you have to be extremely trustworthy and be ready to disappoint yourself and organize yourself in a way that while you can finish the task you want to do, but you'll allow just life to happen.
Let me try and distill that further, right? Like he said, like what Ankur also said was that you want to give yourself time to get bored, but more importantly, maybe you want to give yourself time for reflection, because like many other things, reflection can give you asymmetric returns as well, right? And maybe it's possible to have a structured life with an unstructured time structured into it, which I don't know, like I kind of do that, which is Monday to Friday is a structured life and the weekend is one long wide open meadow where you can do whatever you want and you take it as it goes. That's also possible.
Yeah, I have a question for the three of you. When we are young and when we are just starting our careers, we are trying to increase our income by trying out a lot of things. इसकी वजह से calendar भरा रहता है. And if I do not have a calendar, if I do not have any structure, then everything will be running in my head all the time. So is the lack of calendar coming from a place of privilege that now I'm financially independent, because of which I can work on what I want to?
No, that's a very good one. I have a take on this, Anshuman. It's a brilliant question and the right one to ask at a young age. I think what Naval and in general, what people mean when they say don't calendarize your life is don't give away the control of your time to somebody else.
Correct.
Because usually what happens in the work environment is that you don't have an option of what meetings you are part of because someone else imposes that on you.
Correct.
But if you were to set your own calendar, like the way you described कि 1 घंटा coding करूंगा, फिर 1 घंटा content writing करूंगा, फिर content बनाऊंगा, 1 घंटा कुछ और vlogging करूंगा, blah, blah, blah. That is you taking charge of your day. And if in that you also have time for reflection or time for just thinking wide open, then that is a calendar, which in my opinion works because it works for me and I can say that.
Anshuman, I wanted to add something here, which is that when you aspire to move past calendars, Ankur had a great point, which is that you shouldn't be at the mercy of someone else's calendar. Naval has another saying, which is you want to be judged on your output and not on your input. Oftentimes, a calendar is scheduled to be a measure of your input, saying you got to attend this meeting. The best jobs are those where you are judged on your output, so you are free to manage your time at the way you want. So it often happens with me, right? Like the best ideas could come to you almost immediately, but a lot of people at the receiving end, they're like, came to you in just 2 days. This can't be your best idea. You got to take at least 8 to 9 days for your best idea to come. I know for a fact that Amit Trivedi, when he made the music for Kai Po Che, it came to him on the second day, like 3 of those songs, right? They're brilliant songs. And Abhishek Kapoor has gone on record to say, initially, I was so biased saying, how can someone make 3 songs in 2 days? So I made him think more, but that song just kept coming back to me. And I was like, actually, this is the song. It doesn't matter when it came to him.
So if I have control over my time and I know that मेरे time में भी Pareto principle चलता है, power law चलता है, that 20% of the inputs will make for 80% of the results.
Correct.
So can I maximize for that? कि मैं अपना पूरा time सिर्फ उसी चीज में कर रहा हूँ. Is that possible?
ये तो ये हो गया कि only half of advertising works. We just don't know which half. The beauty of Pareto, and I know if you go to that research paper, and I just did that because at some point of time I was training to be an academic, it says you can't escape the Pareto. Whatever you do in life, and however tiny you go and make that microcosm, you'll still have a Pareto. So at some point of time, if 20% of your time is giving you 80% and you only focus on that 20, you will realize that within that 20, there is still another Pareto that is 80-20. And you'll continue asking this question. It's an infinite loop. Ye kabhi nahi jayega.
If you can't decide, the answer is no. I really like this one because oftentimes in ideation room, when you're discussing ideas, the best ideas are those that make the whole room go, yes.
We applied this to brilliant effect at Nearby very early in our game when it came to hiring. What we make the mistake classically in the early stages of Nearby was someone's great on paper, like IIT, IIM, Rockstar, zindagi mein kuch galat nahi kiya hai, sab kuch. And then there is something unexplained, something that doesn't fit in, but we're like, nahi, look at the credentials. हम अपनी 7 जिंदगी में ऐसा नहीं कर पाएंगे जो उसने एक ही में कर दिया. तो go ahead. Never worked out. And at that point of time, I remember, I think it was late 2015 or early 2016. I said, here is something that we'll do. There is zero basis to that, but let's just stick with it. Never hire in doubt. Never hire in doubt. And I cannot tell you guys how much this has saved me because, and it's not just confirmation bias. There are still occasions where we hired in doubt, came back and bit us. There were moments when we were like, we can't explain why we love this person, but everyone seems to love, and let's just go with it. And it's worked out brilliantly. So I think this is an extension.
When building a portfolio of investments that can have non-linear outcomes, never sell early. You may be right most of the time, but the one time you're wrong will cost you most of the returns. This is using Pareto's law to your advantage, saying if you have diversified enough, trust your diversification to get you those returns. You don't need to be in doubt if you're diversified enough.
I also think that if you want to be a successful investor, then you only should sell when you want to, not when you have to. So crypto में एक ही दिन में जब 20-30% गिरता है या फिर निफ्टी एक ही दिन में 10% गिरता है, that's not because all the investors suddenly panicked and sold their stocks. It's because a lot of people were borrowing and trading.
They had
and
to.
जैसे ही market गिरता है, they get a margin call saying that you have to refill your account or we will sell these. Which means that you had no option but to sell.
It's basically power law, but not over-indexing on the return, but over-indexing. So in the VC world, there's something called the anti-portfolio, which all VCs track, but they will never share in public because, of course, that's a reflection of what they didn't do right. And the ones that I've had, it shows convincingly that the return they have generated on their portfolio would have been significantly higher if the anti-portfolio was also invested in. That basically means that there were several people that they said no to for whatever reasons, or they sold early, and that just diminished their overall return because most of them had non-linear outcomes, especially if they were very early on. So imagine someone buying Bitcoin in 2012, or forget 2012, even as late as 2015, 16. Whatever amount you've put in, just don't sell because you can't even humanly comprehend कि ये कितना बड़ा हो सकता है. Like it's physically, mentally, emotionally impossible for someone to know what it means to have a 18,000% return. वो हमारे दिमाग में चलता नहीं है. Like we don't see this curve. Yeah. We just see straight lines.
Yeah, and this is why I'm a buy-only person. I don't want to spend my time thinking about what trades I can make through the year. I want to spend my time thinking about how can I increase my income so I can invest more. Because I just figured that time will do the job for me.
Yeah.
Naval also said, valid reasons for selling. You've completely lost faith in the project. You can redeploy into a better investment after accounting for headwinds from tax. It accounts for too much of your net worth, which is very interesting. You have a worthwhile personal expenditure to make. Agree, disagree with this broadly?
ये तो इतना सिंपल भाषा में लिखा है, ये मेरा वीडियो लग रहा है.
It accounts for too much of your net worth. This, I think, is interesting, which is sometimes your gains can also be so much that you realize that these gains make up a significant chunk of my overall portfolio. So maybe it's time to book your profit then and redeploy it. You don't want to risk most of your net worth, essentially.
Or the net worth has gone beyond what you were aiming for, which is a very important consideration. Like at some point of time, you should have a definition of what is enough, which very few people have in life. What is enough, especially when it comes to money. So let's say you did make a $100,000 investment in Bitcoin in 2012, 13, and now suddenly it's worth 100 million, which is 40% of your net worth. But if you in your head were always the guy with like, no, 50 million, 100 million for me is more than enough in life, then you don't necessarily have to sell because you still have 100 million from the other investments.
In case anyone's watching and you have more than 100 million that you want to, not use, botarmyop@gmail.com. Thank you. If you diet, invest, and think according to what the news advocates, you'll end up nutritionally, financially, and morally bankrupt. In fact, I would generally take out the word news and replace with internet content. Like not everything that you consume needs to be acted upon, needs to be something that you take so seriously that you change your life decisions.
Typically news, you should go anti-news. And if you have this rationale that if something is too much talked about, it's actually the worst time to do something. And if something is not spoken, but fundamentals look right, that means not many people are focusing on it.
You want to buy the rumor and sell the news.
There is, and it works in markets, it's worked time and time. If you do this with the index, don't complicate it. Don't look at a single stock. Index is the best way because everyone speaks of it as a method out of the market. Too much noise is happening, ignore it. If too little is happening, there's something there.
School, politics, sports, and games train us to compete against each other. True rewards, which is wealth, knowledge, love, fitness, and equanimity, come from ignoring others and improving ourselves. This is true, right? Like I think one of the biggest downsides of being in a social setting at school is that you're literally next to Sharma ji ka beta all the time and you're always competing. Whereas if you're truly going to grow, you got to compete with yourself.
This goes back to a beautiful thing that Naval said around his growing up years when he admitted and was vulnerable that I was full of jealousy and anger. And I used to be jealous of every person out there, whether they had money and so on and so forth. And at some point of time in a conversation, someone suggested that if you're truly jealous of someone, you can't be convenient and pick up what you like about their life. You have to assume that you have to take their entire life. Now, would you want their life? And that then did that switch, because as much as I may be jealous of someone that I adore, do I want their entire life? Perhaps not. And then that says then the only person you're competing with is who you were yesterday.
My own shitty life is still better than someone's unknown shitty life to me. Networking is overrated. Become first and foremost a person of value, and the network will be available whenever you need it. I so vehemently agree with this.
So true.
Yeah. Networking is grossly overrated. I think I take people who come to networking events, and if you're trying to network at networking events, people who should truly be in your network don't want you in the network if you meet them at a networking event. It's the opposite, right? Like it's like the more you try to sell yourself, the less likely someone's going to buy that. You want to be sellable just by being yourself.
And I think all four of us will testify to this. At least I've had these moments so many times. You would meet someone who you know is immensely valuable, or you would get in touch with someone who's immensely valuable, and they will have good things to say about you. And you'll be just shocked. Like I'm often shocked. How do you even know that I exist? Forget everything else. Like I can't even comprehend that someone like you knows of me to the extent that you have a point of view on me.
Expecting a non-transactional relationship with strangers is ridiculous, right? Like people think you'll only help if I'm useful to you. Yeah, that's how the world works, right? Like if you have value to provide to someone, they're more likely to want to work with you. Oftentimes, Ankur, what also happens is, Gaurang, tell me if this has happened to you, which is people hold on to grudges, right? Like when you don't have something to offer and you didn't get someone's support, when you do get into a position where they want to collaborate, you tend to hold on to that anger, saying, you were not there. You didn't accept me at my worst. Now you don't deserve me at my best. That's sort of an attitude. Whereas, when there are two people of value, collaboration is only positive sum. If you want to be successful, surround yourself with people who are more successful than you are. But if you want to be happy, surround yourself with people who are less successful than you are. Don't know if this is what mood Naval was in this day.
This is Naval regret 101.
Yeah. If you want to be more successful, this is that theory, right? Which is you are the product of the 5-10 people you spend a lot of time with. That sort of thinking is contagious. If you want to be happy, surround yourself with people who are less successful than you are. Does this mean if you're around people who are more successful, you're not going to be happy?
Is Naval saying that he compares them with other successful people?
Yeah, exactly. I that's how I'm reading that. So true, Anshuman.
Yeah. I would want to rephrase this a little bit. If you want to be happy, surround yourself with people who have far lesser desires than you. That could be useful. Like my happiest friends are people who I don't compete with at any degree. They are not competing in any race. They are a constant reminder that I need to stop competing as well. That's probably helpful. Earn with your mind, not your time. This I thought was interesting. Could someone care to explain what this means?
So it goes back to the tweet about your investments with disproportionate outcomes and selling early. So our mind is a disproportionate asset. Like it is really exponential in how much it can comprehend, memorize. But our time is a limited asset. There's only so much that you can do because you only have 24 hours. So what often happens is that our education system trains us on our mind, but over-indexes us on our time because that's the job and that's the salary that you have to earn. And then we very quickly sell early and then go investing just our time and nothing else. So it gives you that proportional result that you see on the right hand side. But if you were to constantly peg yourself on the mind कि यार आज मैं इतना जानता हूं लेकिन 5 साल के बाद it is not just 5 times more, it could be 50 times more, maybe even 500 times more, then you are earning with your mind and changing it.
The compound interest from many quick, small iterations is greater than the compound interest from few, slow, big iterations. Compound interest operates in the most intellectual and social domains. I understand the first part, which is quick iterations means quick learnings. Quick learning means quick compounding, right? So you want to have short feedback loops such that you know what you're doing wrong so you can improve. What does compound interest operates in the most intellectual and social domains? What does that mean?
As a lot of people say, and it is frank, I don't know how you guys see it, but I see it starkly. I don't remember any time in my, let's say 30 years of consciousness or so on, where by design, the most intellectual and the smartest people are all working on just one thing, which is Web3. Like internet ke time pe bhi, Web 2 ke bhi time pe, there were enough people who were like, nahi, we will continue to be an investment banker. No, we'll continue to be a consultant. We'll continue to be other really nice, lucrative professions that. And suddenly today, the smartest engineers, the smartest hackers have given up what they are doing and all centrally moving to this one thing, which is still big blob.
In the modern world, don't minimize your risks, maximize your opportunities.
The opportunities that all of us have today are literally unparalleled that perhaps cumulatively in 3-4 generations have never not seen, right? And it's available at a click or at a conversation, right? And through any means. Now, if that is the new world we live in and it's only going to exponentially increase, do you want to go fret about the small stuff of being conservative and trying not to experiment? So you might as well experiment multiple things in a very short time, but then focus on 1 or 2 or 3 things. So in a modern world, you cannot apply traditional world thinking. It's perhaps for everybody that in this modern world, risk is not there. You will have food. At least people who are watching this stream will have food, will have housing or some version of a housing, and will have clothing. Then what are you trying to optimize for? And giving away your so-called 8 hours of the best time of your life, especially between 25 to 35.
And isn't it true, Ankur, that if you maximize your risk, you kind of maximize your opportunity as well?
No, I think, well, that is financially true. But what Gaurang is referring to, which I so agree with, is we try and reduce our risks because we are notionally scared of what's going to happen. But if you are comfortable with the worst case scenario, which is हम में से कोई भी भूखा नंगा गरीब नहीं मरने वाला, then suddenly you have only upwards to go. Like you literally have nothing to worry about. So then maximize your opportunity, because you don't know how it can change the orbit. Again, goes back to that tweet. Don't sell early, and minimizing your risks or trying to settle into that secure, stable environment where there is a nice, happy salary every month. Nothing wrong with that, by the way, or anything that you would want to do is selling early.
Returns are made on the way up. Reputations are made on the way down. One thought I had was reputations are made on the way down means adversity determines your true character. The world sees who you truly are when you're going through adversity. And returns are made on the way up. What does that mean?
So I think returns are made on the way up is somewhat obvious, because when you're rising, that's when you are building and capitalizing on everything that you've gone through. But as per definition, whatever goes up has to come down. When it's coming down, that is when your reputation is made. And the reputation doesn't need to necessarily be a bad one. It could still be a good one if you hold on to every bit of that value system that you used to exercise when you were going up. And to the point that you were making, Tanmay, that it's only when you are in shit do you actually realize who your true friends are. It's only when you're in shit you realize what your true character is, because that's when you are pushed against the wall and in some way cornered.
And a way to look at it, right? A hockey curve. See, return is made on the tail end of a hockey curve, right? Around the same. At the start, you have to build a methodology or a structure, whatever that gets you to continuously increase a little by little, not knowing when that return will come up. So hence you have to work towards making yourself better or focused or outcome. And you never know when that return will come. It will come 6 months, maybe 6 years, sometimes 16 years, right? But when things are going down, how you handle your own character in the way you think makes the version of the better or the worst version that comes out. If you can judge yourself in the way down and be happy with it, I think you've done yourself a great...
Naval has no advice on when things are just going sideways. There's no up or no down. Shit's just
Because
flat
he's not a
sideways.
trader. He's an investor.
So Naval has all these amazing quotes. There's a bunch of really awesome, amazing quotes in Ankur's new book called Do Epic Shit. Ankur's display picture makes sense now. You guys can go check it out. I'm linking it in the description. Let's go through some of Ankur's quotable quotes.
This was not something I was ready for.
Let's do it. Ego is a bubble. Instead of bursting it and seeing what all lies outside, we invest most of our energy protecting it. I really like this, Ankur, because I think I have, in my life, taken far too many decisions which are, trying to protect my ego. And it almost never works out. Dumb dick games that we all play.
I think the most fascinating thing about ego for me is we very rarely know wo hai bhi kya. What's the component of it? What am I optimizing for? My reputation, my anger, my inhibition. What is it? And that's frankly what I tried to say, that
people who have no ego.
Convenient.
Yeah, ego is very convenient.
Ego is very convenient.
And whenever you bump into people who have no ego, you suddenly feel so small. You're like, this person doesn't care about themselves as much as I care about myself, and I'm a nobody. So actually not having an ego is a great way to build a lot of allies. To know what you don't know is power. To ask and learn what you don't know is a superpower. I love this because it's that, I forget what it's called. It's
Dunning-Kruger effect.
Dunning-Kruger effect, which is the lesser you know, the more you think you know. Whereas the more you know, then you realize I don't know anything.
Yeah.
So I like to be the first person in the meeting who are like, listen, I don't know, you explain. It often ends up you learn the most when you are that way. There is temporary discomfort in doing the unconventional. There is permanent discomfort in living life as a template.
What I find fascinating is the amount of time people fret on taking the right decision, which is a paradox, because until you don't take the decision, you don't know it's the right decision.
Yeah.
But take the decision, you still don't know whether it will be right or wrong, but whatever temporary discomfort you go through in that point of time, if you're doing something which is resisting the obvious, you still are giving yourself a shot of changing your orbit.
Yeah. Time goes away and leaves us with only one of these two things, regret and results. Regret or results. I love this because it's so true. Whenever you look back at a decision in hindsight, whether you took that decision or not, you either got something great out of it or you regret.
People think that this is unnecessary or toxic motivation because they think of result as positive. And I'm here saying result could very well be negative. But the fact that you lived it the way that you wanted to, you will at least not have regret. That's the only thing. और कुछ नहीं है. एक बहुत गलतियां करेंगे हम जिंदगी में और हर एक decision सही नहीं जाएगा. But you will still have an outcome as against kash.
The pro is the amateur who simply showed up every day. Reminds me a lot of some stuff that James Clear wrote in Atomic Habits, right? Which is just if you're an amateur for a long enough time, you are a pro. There is a pro at the end of the tunnel. Like, take Ankur is a great example, right? A year ago, Ankur was an amateur YouTuber. And now he's looked at as, an absolute pro. And it's just that he showed up every single day and he did what he did.
My public speaking and I was, my first experience on stage was a disaster where, I kid you not, I went up on stage, वो recitation contest होता था ना, school में पता नहीं दो हाथ क्यों पकड़ते थे ऐसे. And I go up on stage and I literally say something for 2 minutes. I get off and my friend says, तेरा मुंह चल रहा था पर तेरे मुंह से आवाज भी नहीं आ रही थी. So for 2 minutes, I kept speaking in my own head without nothing. And I was terrified of the stage and I swore that I would never go out on stage. And then somehow I found myself on stage again in class 11 and I never gave up then. I was like, koi bhi public speaking opportunity milegi, I have to show up. And when people say, sir, aap itna acha bolte hain, kaise? Like, kuch nahi hai. It's just 20 years. That's it. You're not seeing anything which is remarkable. It's just 20 years.
Throughout my life, I was taught because of media and everything that people are blessed.
Yeah.
And then when I read books like Range, where I get to know that Roger Federer was also a kid jisko khelna nahi aata tha, it was mind blowing.
Yeah.
It was mind ki how is this possible?
I think people aren't blessed, but they have an aptitude for something and they found the thing that they like. But you can't deny the amount of amateur days that they have to spend on it to get really good.
It's that famous, I don't know if you guys have seen it, it's remarkable, Harsha Bogle's address at IIM Ahmedabad, where he spoke about Vinod Kambli and Sachin Tendulkar. And he went on record saying Vinod Kambli was a far gifted cricketer than Tendulkar, but something maybe got to his head and Tendulkar's like, dude, bas, har roz khelna hai, kuch nahi, wala, khelte raho.
Correct. We know others through their actions. We know ourselves through our thoughts. This is a really nice one because we often judge others based on their actions, but we don't have that lens about ourselves. We have a bias towards ourselves because we think that we are good intentioned, but actually it's the actions that truly count when it's out in the open, because that's what others are also judging you by.
The bigger thing, Tanmay, that I've realized around this is very often we feel misunderstood. Because in our head, we know exactly why we're doing what we're doing. And we're like, how do you not see it? And it's because, dude, I don't live in your head.
Correct.
You have to tell me that.
Correct.
I will only know that through your actions. So it is baffling how many of us live with our thoughts, but never translate our thoughts into actions for the world to interpret it.
On that note, do check out Do Epic Shit by Ankur Variku. Very useful nuggets about life and of course Ankur's journey. Do check out Ankur on his YouTube channel. Gaurang, thank you so much for joining. Anshuman, thank you so much for joining. And if you enjoyed this, go annoy Ankur. Ask him to do another episode. Thank you so much for joining, Ankur. Appreciate your time and see you next time.
All the best, guys. Bye.